Good morning and Happy New Year. I'm delighted that you could join us today. I'm Neal Worthington, Reverend Neal Worthington of Unity of Payson, and I'm delighted that you're here on this New Year's Day. So that we can give full attention to our considerations today, let's take a moment to be here now. Let all else that calls for your attention drift away in the silence. And on the start of this new year, we are grateful. Grateful for divine goodness that surrounds us and the legacy of goodness within us. And we are grateful for the opportunity for a fresh start this day and every day. And so it is. So as we join together, I want to give you a little roadmap of what we're going to do here this morning. Of course, we've had a few opening remarks and prayer, but I would like to add a couple of things. Since you're joining us on social media, I hope that you'll take an opportunity to interact with us as you can, perhaps with a comment or a reaction. And then, of course, afterwards, go to our Facebook page and follow us in Unity of Payson, and then we'll keep you informed of a lot of the things that are happening here at Unity Payson. So I will present a message. We'll have a short time of reflection, a few more remarks, a little bit of music, and then we'll conclude our service today. But I hope that you will stay after the service, do a little switch and go to unityofpayson.org and hit a little blue button that says, join us on Zoom, because after the service, we will be joining the rest of the Unity of Payson community for a conversation about what we have been inspired by, what we have learned, what's been an insight for us. And we'd like you to join that conversation as well. So we will be here in Payson, and you will be wherever you are, and you'll join us in that conversation on Zoom. So I hope you will do that. John Newton was an Anglican minister, and a minister who had quite a history. His history was this. He grew up without a mother in his home, eventually joined his father at sea because his father was a seaman, and he himself became a seaman, drafted into the Royal Navy, and eventually, after getting out of the Navy, went on to become part of the African slave trade as he transported slaves from Africa to the Americas. On one voyage off the coast of Ireland, his ship encountered a violent storm. He, who had no particular religious leanings, reached out and said, "Help me, God. Help us, God," for he didn't want to perish in that storm. Eventually, the storm abated, and of course, he came to land. But that had an impact on him that went on through the rest of his life. He eventually stopped his seafaring ways and became, after a period of time of study, an Anglican minister. He was a bit of a poet as well. And as a poet, he would sometimes write a poem or some lyrics for the service that he was about to engage in. Well, it was 250 years ago from now, January 1, 2023, exactly 250 years ago, that John Newton wrote a song that I'm sure you're all familiar with, Amazing Grace. Amazing Grace. In that song, and we'll review those lyrics a little bit later, in that song, he looks at some themes that I think are very important. The theme of forgiveness and redemption being possible, whatever the past was. The theme of realizing that without grace, without that amazing grace, we don't truly see. The idea that grace provides relief from fear, and that the power of grace overcomes all circumstances. John Newton. Let's take a look at grace. Here at Unity of Payson, our theme for the month of January is grace. And I put together an affirmation that we use as we put together our considerations. Here it is. I am transformed as I receive and extend divine grace. I am transformed as I receive and extend divine grace. Well, I think first off, it's important to be able to define grace, both from, well, I like to call my friend Merriam the librarian, from Merriam-Webster's dictionary. The idea comes that divine assistance is given to us for the purpose of regeneration, or I might say transformation. That's grace. Divine assistance for the purpose of regeneration. Metaphysically, grace is defined just a little bit differently. It's a transforming power that establishes a new and a higher consciousness. So that's what we'll consider today. First of all, just what is grace? Grace, in the simplest terms, is a great increase in goodness. In Unity, we talk about omnibeneficence, the all goodness of the divine. An increase in goodness as it impacts in our lives. That's what grace is. This, of course, corresponds with all of creation, because in creation, we see the goodness of the divine. We know after maybe sometimes a lifetime of experience, but certainly after spiritual insight, that all things work together for good. That goodness is the very fabric of the universe. Grace is something that originates in the divine, but it is transmitted to us. It comes through us and through the divine nature that we have. We are human, yes, but we are also fully divine. And so that goodness, that grace comes through us. What a wonder that is. It demonstrates the relationship between the divine and human. The divine's creation made something that was valuable, that was approved of. And so we, as expressions of the divine, take that divine approval, that divine idea of care for creation into ourselves. And we find that in this taking that in, it makes us right. Not that we ever were wrong, because we're perfect as creatures of the divine, as creations of the divine. But we take that in and we say from our perspective, divine grace freely makes us right as we truly are. Again, the purpose of grace is transformation, regeneration, making something new, just like we think about that here on New Year's Day, making new. And it's also something that provides for our awakening, There's a word I've always had trouble with that comes out of the traditional Christian scriptures, and that's the word salvation or being saved. It's something that I've had to understand with a deeper understanding than just what I learned in my youth. And I equate it with awakening, this salvation that is spoken about. A Course in Miracles puts it very aptly and helps me to understand. Course in Miracles says we are saved, but we are saved from belief in the reality of sin and guilt through a change of mind that forgiveness and the miracle bring about. So we become agents of our own salvation or our own awakening. Because of that divine within us, we become agents that don't need to be saved by some outside force or outside personage, but one that can access through the divine in us our own awakening, and that is grace. I think this has been true in my life. In my youth, maybe into my middle years, I had a hard time believing that everything was good. Much that happened to me didn't seem to be good. Grace didn't seem to always be there for, maybe once in a while here and there, but not always. And I'm grateful that over a period of time, a period of insight, period of learning, period of understanding, I got to believe that all is truly good. All things are good, not in a Pollyanna way. Everything's good. No, because we face the situation that appears in our physical reality, but we understand the truth beneath, that all is well, all is good. That's grace, and what a wondrous thing that is. So I want to talk a little bit more about the nature of divine grace. First of all, divine grace is unlimited. There's no limit to that. It's provided for us, it's around us, it's within us, and there is no limit. Just like we often speak about when we talk about prosperity. There is no limit. The substance of the universe that's there for us to access. The same is true for grace. It's unlimited. It's healing for us. It makes us whole. It brings the fractured parts of us together and makes us whole. And it's revealing. Remember the phrase in Amazing Grace, I was blind, but now I see? I think this is what that refers to. That grace, that pervasive sense of goodness that we can receive also helps us to reveal who we are, what the nature of the universe is. Revealing and healing and making whole as we understand. We can access the wholeness that is our birthright as well. This happens perhaps as a surprise sometimes. We're astonished to see what happens. We don't know why it happens. We're surprised. It's like a happy surprise, but you know what? It shouldn't be so, because again, it is always there for us. I was speaking with someone the other day, and they talked about a unique situation where they were in that almost they were at their wits' end. They were frustrated. They went to a friend, a spiritual friend, who was able to advise them. And in that advice, the frustration was almost immediately eased by a change in circumstance. Not only once did that happen, a second time this happened as frustration arose again in talking with that friend and being reminded that all is well. That frustration was immediately addressed with a great deal of assistance. And when the technology that allowed communication didn't seem to be there, that too was immediately cared for, somehow immediately, miraculously provided in her situation. That's grace. Grace that astonishes us but comes again and again. And we begin to believe. Grace, its very nature, is one of being sufficient for everyone, allowing for our imperfections. We are perfect in our imperfections. And grace shows us this. There's a scripture in 2 Corinthians. Divine grace is sufficient for you. Divine power is made perfect in weakness, even when we think we're not doing it right. Grace is there to provide all that we may need. It's abundant. It's always available. And it comes not from some outside source, but through the rest of creation, through created beings, through creation itself. Buddhism has something to teach us here. It speaks about grace a little bit differently. Grace isn't something that we receive from a remote God or some higher power separate from us. Grace comes from recognizing and appreciating the indispensable relationships in our lives. It's through these relationships with each other, with all of creation, that grace flows in. Grace, the grace of the sun, the moon, the air, the rain, the wind. The grace of parents and those who care for us and raise and protect us and educate us. The grace of all beings, animals, plants, and all sentient beings. And the grace even of regulations that bring us to harmony and justice as individuals, as families, as nations, and as a globe. So what does grace do for all? We talked about it being for everyone. What does it do for all? First of all, I think it establishes our blamelessness for us. In Unity, we don't talk about that three-letter word sin very much. We often talk about error and error thoughts. Something is ringing. Error thoughts. Grace is able to establish that those ideas that were not enough, the ideas that were undeserving, that's not the real us. The real us is an us that we may have forgotten. But we are blameless. Though we may make errors, though we may miss the mark, we nonetheless are able to access and receive the grace that allows us to change course, that allows us to do it again. Grace is available for everyone. We spoke about that. And this it does for everyone. In the scripture, Christian scriptures, it talks about the grace being rain, and it falls on the just and on the unjust. For our judgment, it may be the people who deserve it and the people that don't. Grace is a path to transformation. It's a path. It doesn't happen all at once. It's a process. And so we are transformed by the making new of our mind and of our very understanding of ourselves. Grace works organically, both for us and through us. And it doesn't have to be serious. It can be lighthearted and filled with joy. It's talked about as being grace upon grace. So the question is, this wondrous grace, this grace that is so much bigger than we can even imagine, that's always available for us. How do we do that? How do we access that grace? I'm going to suggest 3 ways that we can do that. 1, we can let go of what we hold on to tightly. Sometimes in our humanness, in the way we think, in the way we go about our lives, we are plunging forward and we're holding on tightly to a number of things. And it's that holding on tightly that sometimes holds us back and blocks us off from the receipt of divine grace. What do you hold on to? Your opinions, of course. It's my opinion. That's a little bit of an ego way to go about things. Let go sometimes of those opinions. And let go of your way of doing things. Well, we all like to be in control. The way I do it is right. I know the way I stack the dishes in the dish drainer is the right way to do it. I also know that as I'm able to let go of what I deem to be right, I am freed to receive grace. And I also let go of an outcome that I may have focused on. I think something should go like this, and the perfect solution for this is this to happen. And it's very concrete. But that outcome may in fact not be what we're really looking for, what we're really wanting and needing, because that may even be out of our view. So when we're able to let go of the tightly held idea that this is the only outcome, then we're able to access grace. So in this process, we have to undergo a bit of what we call denial. And I'd like to suggest a denial for this is one that works for me. I am not the outpicturing of my human will. I am more than that. I am not the outpicturing of my human will. Secondly, besides loosening our grasp on what we hold so tightly, how about thinking of ourselves as we ought to think, thinking rightly? It's also easy for us to think that, we're undeserving, or we didn't do this right, so that grace probably doesn't apply to us. So we don't think of ourselves rightly. And I think it's helpful for this to think of yourself as a child of the divine with a legacy of all that the divine offers. And we do this through an affirmation, and one that works for me is, I am a child of the divine, with all of the divine benefits included. I am a child of the divine, with all of the divine benefits included. And thirdly, receive and be grateful. Grace is there, but unless we have the door open to receive it, we won't access it, or maybe only a smidgen of it. Receive and be grateful. Don't forget the be grateful part. It blesses that and opens the door to further graces. Remember the beginning, that song, Amazing Grace, written by John Newton. In Unity, we sometimes do what we call unitize. We unitize the language because what has come to be our deeply held belief doesn't quite fit the language of a particular scripture or a particular set of lyrics. So I want to read you the lyrics of Amazing Grace as they are unitized. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a soul like me. I once was lost, but now am found, was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to sing, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already passed. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far to freedom that will last. Amazing grace. The funny thing about John Newton is, although these 3 verses, these bit of lyrics came down to us, he also wrote a little chorus to go with them, or that hymn originally. Hasn't come down to us, but here's how it goes. It's that joyful acceptance of grace. And here is how it goes. Shout, shout for glory. Shout, shout, shout aloud for glory. Brother, sister, mourner, all shout glory. Hallelujah. So do you get a sense of how wondrous this grace is? How much it goes beyond the usual way we conduct our human business? I hope you do, because grace is a wonder by which we are so blessed. I want to take time now to just mention a couple of things and then give us time for a bit of reflection on this grace. Remember that grace is freely available. And as you consider this, take time to still your mind and still your body. And envision, if you will, grace as being part of your body. It's almost like organs or parts of your body that are there. Grace, grace, grace here, grace there, in this part of me, in that part of me. And you see those graces. Imagine the great divine grace that yet waits to come to you. And see in yourself the graces that you know that you have already experienced, that divine goodness that can't be explained any other way. And then think a little further with me. Think of the cloak, a cloak that you might be wearing that's around your shoulders. And on that cloak are things that you've wanted to control, things that you've held tightly, outcomes that you've insisted upon. That cloak is filled with those things that you've insisted upon. See yourself now taking that cloak, slipping it off your shoulders, and letting it fall away. And as you let it go, a mist descends on you. It surrounds you. It infuses you. It gives you great peace. It brings the feeling of love and goodness to you. So as you let that cloak slip away, take time to reflect and what it is that makes up your cloak. And let it slip away. Receive that grace, that mist that extends beyond where the eye can see. That blanket of love and goodness that is grace. Receive it. Take it in. See it already as part of you, because it comes not so much from without, but from within and without. Grace, that goodness beyond measure, that more than expected goodness. Because of our errors, we think we perhaps are not deserving of that grace. But grace comes in a way that goes beyond what we can even expect or hope for. Receive that grace. Take a moment to just see that grace infusing you. Take a moment in the silence. And be grateful, for so it is. I want to take time to share just a little bit of music for you. It's a song that we have grown to love here at Unity of Payson. Thank you for this day and all that comes with it.
Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my friends, Spirit. Thank you for my friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. My wonderful, my wonderful, my wonderful friends. Now thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. This healing, this healing, this healing day. Thank you for this day, Spirit. Thank you for this day. Spirit, thank you for this day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. This beautiful, this beautiful, this beautiful day. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you. That's my response. I hope it's yours as well. So Unity of Payson is more than just this Sunday morning service. Unity of Payson is a number of activities and classes, and I hope that you'll take the opportunity to go to unityofpayson.org, unityofpayson.org, where you'll find those activities. And I do hope you'll find one that draws your attention, you're drawn to it, and that you join us for that. Most all of our classes and activities are virtual, so we'll be glad to see you there, wherever you are. When you're at that site, Unity of Payson, if you've been blessed or you've been inspired by what we share in this message or in these times, I invite you to take the opportunity to give back. There's a donate button. Just press that donate button, and we will appreciate any gifts that you give. We'll be thankful. One more thing. The service is about to end as such, but you have an opportunity while you're at that unityofpayson.org to hit a button that says join us on Zoom, because we'd like to discuss this a little bit more fully and discuss it with all of our family, our in-person family, and those that are across the country and perhaps across the world. And so when you're finished here, go to that button that says join us on Zoom, and you'll see us here in Payson gathered together, and you'll see all of those who have joined us virtually. We'll have an opportunity to interact with one another and to discuss a little further what we've talked about today. Let's take a moment to just breathe again, to know that we are blessed by grace upon grace upon grace. And so it is. Amen.